Hello dear students, I hope you're all doing great, safe and ready to learn. First of all, welcome to your online English classroom. I've created this YouTube channel to share with you English lessons that are specifically tailored for second year baccalaureate students, meaning 12th grade. However, if you are an English learner as well, you're welcome on board. Now, before starting with the textbook, before I start talking about grammar, functions or vocabulary, I've chosen to talk to you today about two important lessons. And those two important lessons are parts of speech and the four skills. Now, why have I chosen to talk about these two lessons? The first reason is that if you learn parts of speech and you master them, every student will be able to actually know the structure of sentences and learn the function of each word in a sentence. That is very important. And the second lesson, which is the four skills, they're very important because they will help you determine your way of learning. I mean, like when you start learning, either you like to learn by visual aids or by listening, by reading or by speaking. Those are very important for you to know. This way you will easily and fully understand the lessons that are about to come in our series of videos. Now let's start with parts of speech. Now, what are parts of speech and what are their functions? That is, or those are the questions we're going to be answering in this lesson today. So, I believe we talked about this in the classroom in our first lesson. Alright, in September, as an introduction to the English subject, but today I'm going to emphasize to talk about them again so that you all know how to use them. Now, parts of speech in the English language, there are 8. Alright, so there are 8 parts of speech. We could say 9, adding numerals, but I'm going to focus on the 8 most common and used parts of speech. Now, when we say parts of speech, we are referring here to speech, which is the noun or the verb, of course, the verb to speak. Very well. Now, let's say parts. It means that when we speak or when we write, we're using parts, okay? As in a sentence, in the English sentence, we have 3 parts. We have the subject plus the verb plus the object. And here we can make a, let's say, a simple sentence, all right? Now, the subject is a part, the verb is a part, and the object is another part. Now, I will talk to you about them in details. Let's pronouns, adjectives, and verbs, adverbs, prepositions, and conjunctions. Good. Let's talk about them more in details. Now, nouns, okay? So in every sentence we read, or in every paragraph we read, we must come across these parts of speech. Now we have the first one, which are very common, nouns. The second part of speech is pronouns, okay? The third one, we have adjectives, verbs, and we understand what linking words are. They link between a sentence, 2 words or paragraphs or any ideas, of course. Now, let's start with nouns. What do we mean by nouns? So here we take our first part of speech. All right, so nouns, for example, we're talking about here about things, people, we're talking here about things, people, places, and abstract things. For example, a man, a woman, clothes, for example, house, playground, idea, or a job. Now here they are nouns, okay? So they could be, of course, singular or plural, and how to make them from singular to plural. This is what we have seen in the classroom and something you should look for. Now let's go ahead and move to pronouns. Of course, we use pronouns instead of a noun. Okay, in a sentence, we cannot say, for example, Karim is 8 years old. Karim studies in primary school. Karim is from Morocco, etc. All right, so we just, in the second sentence, we must change Karim with a pronoun. And the pronoun we can use here is he. All right, the third person singular pronoun, he. Now, pronouns, of course, there are many types of pronouns. Okay, there are object pronouns, subject pronouns, let's say possessive pronouns, adjective pronouns, many. You must, well, if you want me to, let's say, prepare a specific lesson for these pronouns, just let me know in the comments, okay? Now, let's move on into the third part of speech, adjective. An adjective is very important in a sentence, okay? We know what an adjective does in a sentence. They describe a noun, okay? We say, for example, a car. Car is a noun. Now, let's describe a car. Let's say we could say, for example, a beautiful car. Now, you understand? So, we've used the adjective beautiful here with the noun car to describe what the car looks like. For example, a red car. We've used colors here, and colors are adjectives as well. Now, we have many, for example, many examples. Pretty, happy, good, bad, long, and short. Let's see. So these are the second type of, let's say, second parts of speech. Third parts of speech, of course. Let's move to the fourth one, verbs. And here we're talking about actions. A verb in a sentence is very important because it tells us the action. It does not describe it, but it tells us the action. For example, play, see, take, make, do, could, etc. And there are modal verbs. There are, let's say, many other, of course, types. Let's see. Now, regular verbs, irregular verbs. Let's see here. Let me ask you this question. What did you do this morning? Give me 4 or 5 verbs. Okay? For example, for me, I woke up, ate breakfast, took a shower. So the verbs I've used, wake up, it's a phrasal verb. This is why I've said there are many types. Wake up, eat, and take. Good. Let's move on to the other parts of speech. The sixth one, adverbs. I'm talking here about the fifth one, actually. Adverbs. What do they do in a sentence? Not like adjectives. Okay? Adjectives describe a noun, but an adverb describes a verb. Very good. How? Now, for example, we have here well, badly, slowly, quietly, fast, and long. These adverbs describe not the noun, but they describe the verb. Okay, very good. Now, an example. He walks slowly. What is the verb in this sentence? Okay, so the verb is, let's say, walk. It's in the third person singular. He walks, we've added S because it's he. He walks slowly. Now, the adverb in this sentence is slowly. This adverb describes how does the person walk. Okay, very good. So we talked about adverbs and we said that adverbs describe verbs. Let's move on into the sixth part of speech. Let's talk about prepositions now. Prepositions are very important in a sentence and they show the relationship. They also show us the place of things, places of things. For example, and this is why we call them prepositions. You see, in this word by itself, there is, by the end, there is position. They show us the position of things and their places, and they also show us time, etc. There are many types of prepositions. Now, there are prepositions of time and prepositions of place. This is another lesson. If you want me to actually talk more in details about it, just let me know in the comments, of course. Now, we have, for example, in, at, of, forward, outside, or over. Many other prepositions, of course. And the most used prepositions in the English language, they are three. They are in, at, and on. These are the most used prepositions in the English language. Now let's move on into the seventh part of speech, conjunctions, or we also call them linking words. And by linking, I mean that they link between words, sentences, sentences within a paragraph, and they even link between paragraphs in an essay. Okay, very, very important. Now we are going to move into some examples. We have here and, because, but, thus, while, when, therefore, however, moreover, but, yet. There are many types of conjunctions, and we use them for different purposes, okay? Either to show contrast between two sentences, or addition between two sentences, concession. There are many types you could check. Now, each part of speech is different, and each part of speech could be tackled as a specific lesson, okay? Now I'm just giving you a kind of like a, let's say, a summary on what are those parts of speech and how important they are in the English language. Now, let's talk about the last part of speech. Here we have interjections. They describe sounds, and we most often use them in dialogues, okay? There are many, and as I've mentioned earlier, we use them in a sentence. For example, you say, "Oh, that is amazing," or "that's amazing." So we have here this interjection. Good. So this is the first part of our lesson today. We've talked about the importance of parts of speech in sentences, and the importance of knowing them in the first place. Okay, so if you know all these parts of speech, you're good to go. All right, so you could start revising for your baccalaureate exam, and you could start with the first unit with grammar, functions, and vocabulary. Now, as I've mentioned earlier, this will help you determine the function of each word in a sentence and determine how to use these words in a sentence, okay? Now, the second part of this lesson today is going to be about the 4 skills. Very important lesson too. I'm just going to put in 4 like this, and the 4 skills. These are very, very important. They are going to help you determine the way through which you prefer to learn English. All right, so let's say that we mostly have in the classroom, we have 30, 39, let's say 25, 35 students. Not all students have the same skills, and they don't all prefer to learn in a certain way. So some of them prefer to learn by just listening, and some others prefer by speaking, some others prefer by, let's say, reading. Others just like to write, they like to produce. Now, here I've mentioned the word produce. Alright, so what do I mean by produce? Because we have 2 types of skills. So we said the 4 skills. We have 2 types. Let me talk to you about these types. Now, there are productive. Sorry, this should not be a circle. There are productive skills, and there are other skills which are receptive. Good. Now, these are 2 different words. Productive, it means you produce, all right? You give. And receptive, you take in, all right? The skills that you take and learn. And productive skill, it means skills that you use to produce something, let's say sentences or whatever, all right? So let's talk about them more in details. We'll use a picture I have here. All right, good. So here we have the picture. Let me zoom in. Sorry. Let me zoom in the picture for you. All right, the 4 skills: receptive skills and productive skills. Here, there are 2 types, all right, as you could see, and they are 4. So we have the reading skill, the listening skill, and we have in the productive skill, we have speaking and writing. Here, I think it's very clear why they are called receptive and why they are called productive. First, we have reading. It is receptive because you take information, all right? So you read books, you read newspapers, for example, blogs, paragraphs, I don't know, conversations, whatever that is, all right? So by doing this, by doing these, let's say, these activities, you are improving your receptive skill, which is reading. Now, let's say you want to improve your listening. And here, as we've talked in the classroom, each skill, there are specific activities you could do to improve it. And you remember, I've divided you into groups, and I've given the assignment that each group should come up with different activities through which we could actually improve our specific skill. All right, good. Now, let's talk about how are you going to improve reading, for example. So let's put these skills here. How are you going to improve reading? Any ideas? So for example, we're going to put this into 2 categories: reading and the second skill, listening. All right, how are we going to improve reading and how are we going to improve listening? So let's give some ideas. All right, so for example, you could improve your reading skill by just reading short stories, all right? And I emphasize on short stories because for your level, you must look for very simple stories and very comprehensive ones that are easy to understand, okay? You don't bombard yourselves with advanced 200 pages stories. Short stories. All right, so for example, blogs. We use internet. There are many blogs that are very, very, let's say, very beneficial for you. For example, Facebook posts, which is the simplest thing we could do. Posts. And posts, here, what do I mean by posts? For example, you could look for pages that are specifically created for English learning. All right, so many other things you could do to improve your reading skill. Now let's talk about listening. Listening is a receptive skill. You receive. This means you must listen. Let's take the example of the example I've shared with you in the classroom. The example of a baby. What does a baby do in first, let's say, first stages of life? You know, first year, second year. They kind of just like listen to their parents, all right? And with time, they develop their listening skill. And after that, they start to produce words, all right? And then that develops into other skills, of course. When they go to primary school, they work on their writing skill and then the reading skill, of course. Now, you could improve your listening by just listening to the radio. Very simple. British radio, American radio channels, they're available on Play Store. You could download them. Of course, podcasts. Very, very important. You could download actually and listen to them offline. So whenever you have the chance to have you have Wi-Fi or data on your plan, on your credit card now, then you could download many podcasts and radio, let's say streaming, and then listen to it afterwards offline. They're very helpful. For example, TV, let's say, I don't know, videos on YouTube, and here vloggers, very important. Vloggers, because you talk, most of the times you talk about their daily life, so it's very important that you listen to them, you take some vocabulary, you improve your listening skill. And something that is very important, many students tell me or ask, teacher, why do we listen to English if we're not even able to understand what is said to us? We don't understand the language, why should we listen to it? Well, something I must tell you. Although you don't understand, it is important that you listen. It's because you're going to develop a habit of recognizing words. You're not going to understand the whole sentence, the whole speech, but you're going to understand part of it, and that part of it will help you in the future recognize some words, some vocabulary, all right? And that way you could improve yourself and improve the listening skill. Now, we're about to finish our lesson today, and that is very good. I hope you've so far understood some part of this lesson or all of it, which will be very good. Now let's talk about productive skills. Those productive skills usually are what comes next after you read and listen to the English language. Then you start to kind of like experiment, you start to produce. Now, there are two skills. We have speaking and we have writing. Those are the productive skills. Now, how am I going to improve my speaking and how am I going to improve my writing? Very important. Now, before I even start, I will give them this word here. We give you, this word here, practice. Okay? You could improve these two skills by practicing every day. Every chance you get, you must practice them. And you could practice them in different ways. For speaking, all right, how are you going to practice speaking? Just talk to the mirror. Very simple act, and this way you could just see how you pronounce words. And something that is very important, read loud. Read loud and try to listen to how you pronounce those words written. Another thing that is very important is just sing, if you prefer singing. Sing with your favorite songs, okay? Choose a song that you like very much or part of a song that you like very much and just try to repeat it. Sorry about the very bad handwriting. It's because I'm using my stylus and it's not very helpful in writing on these screens. Now, let's move on into the second let's say productive skill, which is writing. How are you going to improve your writing? So we could improve our writing by practicing as well. Of course, this is why I've given them this head title here, practice. All right, so you start writing sentences. Very important. Simple sentences. Subject, verb, object. Write them. Try to practice every day and make those sentences into 2 sentences. All right, you start writing compound, complex sentences, etc. So this takes time, but you could even start with paragraphs. All right, each week, for example, I'm going to write 1 or 2 paragraphs. And of course, you could send me those paragraphs to correct and probably give you some tips. Now, so we said writing simple sentences, writing paragraphs, even chatting with your friends, right? Chat, it's very important. Try to talk to each other using English. Of course, chatting is different from writing academic, let's say, paragraphs or descriptive paragraphs, opinion paragraphs. This is what we're going to kind of like talk about in the next series of videos. I'm going to talk about how to write a descriptive paragraph, how to write an opinion paragraph, how to write a letter, a formal letter, an informal letter. Let's say, for example, how to write a report. What we have basically in the textbook, which is for second year baccalaureate students. Now, the textbook I'm going to use to give lessons, the one I'm using in the classroom, Ticket to English, all right, for second year baccalaureate students. I'm focusing on second year baccalaureate students because they're more concerned with the national exam. And of course, these lessons are going to be very beneficial for even first year baccalaureate students or common core students, for every student that is looking for ways to improve their English. Now, we've talked about practice, speaking and writing skills, and we've come to the end of our, let's say, our lesson today. So a very brief summary to talk about things we've tackled in this lesson. So there are two things we've talked about. So we've talked about, let's say, parts of speech. And we've talked about the 4 skills and how to improve our 4 skills. Let me put them side by side here so they are very clear to you. Now, I focused on these 2 lessons for many reasons. I have mentioned them in the beginning of the video. The first reason is that because they're going to help you determine the function of each word in a sentence and how these words work together so that they could produce sentences and paragraphs and essays, all right? And we've talked about the 4 skills because each learner here watching this video prefers to learn in a certain way. It's not very necessary to watch videos if you don't like visual aids, if you don't like to learn by this way. You could just listen to music, listen to different podcasts and listen to English lessons, and if you prefer listening and writing, of course, and then you kind of like work on these different skills that you have, and by the end, probably with time, you're going to be able to improve your English language.